Now in the last session, we saw a very simple form of function that allows for input. Now in this lesson, I want to take even further and I want to create a function that allows for multiple inputs. So let's comment out the previous code that we created over here. So as you remember, this was a simple code. So I'm just going to comment out this code from here, the one that we are calling the function. Then I'm going to create a new function which will take two parameters. So it's going to be name and city. So here, one more time, to create a function, I'm just going to use def keyword. So in this case, the name of function will be greet. So I will put with. So let's put name and city. So NC. So here it's going to take two parameters. Now, as a challenge, I want you to quickly think about how you might add two parameters. One's called name and another one is called city into this function declaration over here. Now pause the video, have a brief think, and then we will go through it together. Alright, we know that if we wanted to add one parameter, which is name over here, we just need to put name of the variable. And this is how we will do it. We will just add it inside this parenthesis over here. Now if we want to have more than one parameter, all we have to do is to add comma after this parameter, then we are going to add second parameter. Now in this case, the second parameter will be city. Now after adding the parameters over here, I'm just going to put colon over here and hit enter. So after hitting enter, as you can see, the cursor comes to the indented level. So this means that whatever we are going to write inside this function is going to be inside this function over here. Now then inside this function, we are going to use the name to print out something hello name, and we are going to use city parameter to ask whether in their particular location. So one more time here again, I want you to pause the video and think how can you modify this function over here to greet the person and ask for the weather over here. Now hopefully you have done it by yourself. Now if you haven't done it, let's do it together. So here I'm just going to call print function. So this part of code basically will be the same. So I'm just going to copy it from here and pass it over here, the one that we created in our previous lecture. Then we are going to use same print statement. Then we are going to use f string one more time over here. So inside f string, we are going to put what is weather like in. So we are going to put the city name inside braces. So it's going to be like this, city name. Now with this, our function is completed. Now if I call this function with the name of greet with nc, it's going to prompt me to add both these inputs over here. Now after this function over here, I'm just going to call this function. So it's going to be greet. So our function is this one. So we have created greet function over here, greet with name function, and in our previous lectures. Now in this lecture we have created greet with nc. So as you can see, it's prompting this one, and here you see that it's requesting two parameters over here. Now after putting the name of function, if I put parentheses over here, you see that first it's requiring the name, then it's requiring city parameter. Now which parameter you are typing over here is going to underline that parameter. Now first we are going to type my name, which is Ershad. So it's going to be like this. Then if I put comma over here, you will see that the underline changed to city. So this means that it's requiring the city name. So in this case, I'm just going to put, for example, Berlin. Now if I run our code, you will see that in this case it's greeting Ershad. So this means that it takes this Ershad parameter from here and replace it with the name variable and putting it over here. Then the second line is what is weather like in Berlin. So it's taking this Berlin from here and put it inside this city and printing out as an output like this to the console. So as you can see here, it takes these parameters, replace these variables over here without any issue. Now the question is, if I take these parameters over here and change their places, what will happen? So instead of Ershad over here, if I put Berlin, and instead of Berlin, if I put Ershad, what will be the output in this case? Now in this case, if I run our code, you'll see that first is saying hello Berlin and what is weather like in Ershad. So as you can see, it didn't take the name parameter as Ershad, it take name as Berlin and city as Ershad over here. So actually what happened here is it takes the position of the data, looks at both these arguments over here, and first it gets assigned the Berlin to the name, then it's getting assigned Ershad to the city over here, then it's using these variables inside this code over here. Now in this case, name is equal to Berlin and city is equal to Ershad. That's why it is printed out over here as an output, something strange. So as I mentioned, Berlin is assigned to name and Ershad name is assigned to city over here. And in Python, this is called positional argument. Because when we call the function, we have not specified anywhere which particular parameter we want to associate this piece of data that we have over here. So it's just gone and looked at the position of these variables and taking them over here. So this means that when we are declaring our function, we have set as a first parameter name, then the second parameter city. So that's why as a first value that we are sending to function, it's going to take Berlin, and the second value is Ershad. That's why it's assigning Berlin to name and Ershad to city over here. Now this is the default way of calling functions, because when we are typing our code over here, we get the hints to which piece of data you need to enter. But also you can refer the function, look at the order of parameters when you are declaring it. So as you can see, when we look at the declaration of this function, we see that first name, the second one is city. Now if we had more input, let's say in this case we had A, B, C, and we put the arguments 1, 2, 3, then it means that our variables that get created will be A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, and C is equal to 3. Because in this case, we are calling it as the order that we have declared over here. Now, if we switch around the arguments in the function call like this, in this case, A will be 3, B will be 1, and C will be 2. So it might be doing slightly unpredictable things over here. Now, whenever you are creating code and you are using these positional arguments, you are just inserting data one by one like this. It does not something completely unexpected. Be sure that to check your position and to make it match with the position of parameter that you are inserting the data over here. Now, if you want to be more clear when you actually call the function and you don't want to counter this problem, well, in this case, you can use something called keyword arguments. So instead of just adding the arguments in the function call like this, you can actually add each of parameters name and equal sign to say that the first parameter is equal to this one, and the second parameter is equal to this one, and the third parameter is equal to this one. So in this case, A will be 1, B will be 2, and C will be 3. And now when we actually change the order around, it does not matter how we order these parameters over here. It's going to be the same values for this parameter over here. So even though we have changed the order of the parameters over here, A is still 1, B still 2, and C still 3. So now I want to take this function over here that we created, and instead of positional argument over here, I want to use the keyword argument. So this is another challenge. So here I want to pause the video and think, how can you use keyword arguments for this function call over here? Now, hopefully you have done it by yourself. If you haven't done it, let's do it together. So one more time, we are just going to call our function. So I'm going to put parentheses over here. So inside parentheses, the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to put name is equal to Elshad. As we said before, when we are using positional argument, we have to put the name of parameter. So in this case, name of parameter is name. Then the second parameter is city. So in this case, for city, for example, I'm going to put London. Now, if I run our code, you'll see that it says that hello Ershad and what's weather like in London. Now, even if I change the order of these parameters over here, so instead of first putting name, if I put city over here and after that if I put comma and run our code, you'll see that in this case nothing is changed. So it's going to print out hello Ershad and the weather, what's weather like in London. So as you can see, whatever we put over here, it's going to assign London to city and Ershad to name over here. Now this can make your code less error prone, but it does make each line of code longer. So I recommend you using your judgment to figure out when you want to use which type of argument, and depending on need, you can pick between these two. Now with this, we have come to the end of this lecture. So in this lecture, we have learned how can we declare a function with more than one, and what is the difference between positional and keywords arguments. Hopefully everything is clear about this. So see you in the next lecture.